Did you ever wonder who was Amelia Earhart? She led an interesting life full of adventure. Amelia Earhart was born in her grandmother's house on July 24th, 1897. Amelia's mom had rich parents, although Amelia's dad had money problems. One day, Amelia's father had enough money to go to the St. Louis World Fair. Amelia and her family went to the World Fair in 1904. There were Eskimo villages and Japanese gardens. Amelia and her sister saw a roller coaster. When they got back to Kansas, Amelia wanted to build a roller coaster in her backyard. It was 1916 when 19-year-old Amelia boarded the train. She was going to the Agassiz School, located in Pennsylvania. Amelia wasn't far away from home. She just wanted to go on an adventure. She didn't like Miss Sutherland, head of the school. Amelia soon got used to Miss Sutherland. Soon World War I started during the holidays. She became a nurse for the soldiers in the war. She worked hard. Amelia was working in the Toronto hospital until World War I was over. Soon she was going to come back to the United States. She came back to study science. Soon she was a starter pilot. She paid $1 a minute. It was a lot of money in 1921. One day, Amelia wanted to fly across the world. She had to hurry. She did not have much time. She started in Hawaii. Fred Noonan joined Amelia. It started 1928. There were 20 hours and then they needed fuel, but they made it. They needed fuel again. They had to stop at Howland Island. Did they make it? No. No one knows what happened. Amelia Earhart's death is a mystery. Soon, so as you know, Amelia loved to adventure. She also wanted to be the first to do everything. She was a very kind and loving woman.
Anne Frank had a hard life. She was only 15 when she died. Her life was interesting even though it was short. Anne Frank was a Jewish girl and was born on June 12, 1929. She lived in Germany with her family. She died in concentration camp when she was 15. She made a book called The Diary of Anne Frank while hiding from a dangerous leader named Adolf Hitler. She moved to Amsterdam to find her hiding spot. Before she hid from Hitler, she went to school and had a normal childhood. Anne Frank's mother was named Aretha Frank. Her father was named Otto Frank. Otto was a businessman. Anne Frank has a sister named Margaret. Edith Frank stays home and takes care of Anne Frank and her sister Margaret. Margaret is older than Anne Frank. Anne's father was the only person in the family to survive concentration camp. Anne started her diary 2 days after her 13th birthday. She wrote about a boy she liked, arguing with her friends, and more. Anne named her diary Kitty after an old friend. She also wrote the hard life she had in her hiding spot. After she was found, her father made her diary into a book. In 1940, Hitler had control of Amsterdam. Anne and her family had to hide in a small dark house called the Secret Annex. The family could not go outside. Food supplies were stored in the attic. Most of the activities had to be done in the nighttime. More people joined the secret endlets. She spent 2 years at the secret endlets. As you can see, Anne Frank's life was hard. If you could travel to the past, would you want to meet Anne Frank in person?
Do you know who was known as the Queen of Soul? If you think it is Aretha Franklin, then you are right. Aretha Franklin was born on March 25, 1942, in Memphis, Tennessee. Her nickname was Ree. Aretha performed in church at age 10. Her mom had a heart attack and died when Aretha was 14. Aretha Franklin went to New York with her dad in 1960. Aretha Franklin had 3 husbands. Their names are Ted, Ken, and Glenn. Aretha had 4 sons. Aretha met with Major Holly and recorded Today I Sing the Blues. Aretha returned in 2017. Aretha married Ted Cook in 1961. John Hammond gave Aretha a 6-year contract with Columbia Records. Aretha began recording in 1967 at Muscle Shoals Studio in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. This studio had a much more flexible style than Columbia Records. Aretha Franklin died in 2018. I hope you had a good time learning about Aretha Franklin. I hope you grow up to be like Aretha Franklin.
Do you know a little boy who was always getting in trouble and a Yankees home run king? Well, that would be Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth was born on February 6, 1895, in Baltimore, Maryland. Babe Ruth was a wild boy who was always getting in trouble. Babe was the oldest of 8 children. Babe's family was poor and lived in a dirty and noisy part of town. When Babe was 7 years old, he went to St. Mary's School. At St. Mary's, Babe got really good at baseball. Babe married Helen Woodford on October 17, 1914. Babe had a child named Dorothy in 1921. Babe and his wife bought a farm and named it Home Plate. Babe had lots of animals on their farm. Babe Ruth died on August 16, 1948. May 6, 1915, Babe Ruth hit his very first home run in the majors. The Yankee Stadium opened in 1923. Babe hit his first home run there. Babe hit the very first home run there. 1914, Babe signed with the Baltimore Orioles. 6 months later, Babe was traded for the Boston Red Sox in the major league. Babe hit a total of 259 home runs in the Yankee Stadium. Babe was voted most valuable player in 1923. Babe hit a total of 714 home runs in his career. Babe Ruth is chosen for the National Baseball Hall of Fame in 1936. In 1914, Babe started playing for the Boston Red Sox. A couple months later, Babe went to pitch for the Providence Rays. Then in 1915, he went back to the Red Sox. In 1920, the Red Sox sold Babe to the New York Yankees. Babe retired in 1945 from baseball. So you know a lot about Babe Ruth. Just remember he hit a lot of home runs and is a Yankee home run king. That's Babe Ruth.
Ben Franklin was an important person in American history. Ben was a printer and inventor. Ben Franklin invented a lot of things. Ben Franklin helped to make the United States. Ben Franklin was born in Boston on January 17, 1706. His family was very big with the 17 children. At age 10, his parents took him out of school to make candles. In 1784, he invented bifocals. He helped to create American's public library. Ben made the electric battery called the Dayton. He also made the night remote and the Franklin stove. Ben Franklin became the publisher of the New England Courant. He was an apprentice for his brother as a printer. Ben helped to print the Boston Gazette. He started his own newspaper called the Pennsylvania Gazette. He created poetry on a map, and it was the most popular almanac. He helped to take away the Stamp Act in 1775. He solved and won. He solved the Continental Congress. He was one of the 5 men to write the Declaration of Independence. He helped to write the U.S. Constitution. He signed it on September 17, 1787. He died on April 17, 1790. As you can see, Ben Franklin was an important person in American history. Ben Franklin inventions are still used today. What would you invent?
Have you ever heard of Dr. Seuss? Dr. Seuss wrote kids' books. He loved to draw silly animals. Dr. Seuss's real name is Theodore Seuss Skeezel. He was born in Springfield, Massachusetts on March 2nd, 1904. Growing up, his family loved wordplay. His mother made up rhymes about pie flavors. She would sing them to him and his sister. Ted knew how to speak both English and German. He loved to go to the zoo. He won a contest for Boy Scouts, but they ran out of medals for him. In college, he was voted least likely to succeed. He went to Dartmouth College. In college, he got in trouble for having a party with alcohol. He couldn't write for Jacko anymore. That is when he started using his middle name, Seuss. He met Helen Palmer and they got married. Helen told Ted that he should be an illustrator. Helen died on October 23rd in 1967. In 1968, he married Audrey Diamond. She has never read Ted's books. His junior year at Dartmouth, he was made editor-in-chief. Ted drew for Flit, and his drawings became famous. The Cat in the Hat was the book Ted was most proudest of. He wrote Green Eggs and Ham, which is his most popular book. He wrote another famous book, which was How the Grinch Stole Christmas. He won a Pulitzer Prize for kids' books. He wrote over 40 books. He traveled to England to go to Oxford University. He moved to New York City for a job. In 1936, Ted and Audrey took a trip to Egypt. Ruth. He went to Hollywood in California as a soldier. Ted and Audrey traveled to Mexico, Peru, Australia, Africa, and Hawaii. Ted and Audrey liked to travel the world. That is how Ted took breaks. As you see, Dr. Seuss was an incredible man. He was very creative. Do you like his books?
Do you know the famous female artist from Mexico? She suffered in pain for 40 years prior to her death. Frida Kahlo got polio when she was 7. Frida's leg was in a lot of pain. Everybody teased her about her leg when she got polio. She played sports and exercised, but her leg did not grow strong. She wore long dresses, long skirts, pants, and 4 or 5 pairs of socks. On September 17th, 1925, Frida was in a terrible bus accident, and a metal seat went through her body. Many of her bones were broken. The doctors didn't think she would survive. She was in a full-body plaster cast for months. Frida was able to do the thing she loved when she was in pain. She was able to paint while lying in bed. Although she survived polio, she had walked with a limp after she recovered. Frida's art was amazing to others who saw her paintings. People put her art in their exhibitions. Everyone thought she was very talented. People saw her hard and colorful artwork. In summary, Frida was a very, very talented artist. She left her mark on the world.
Do you know a man who was a slave as a little boy, but also grew up to be a famous scientist and inventor? His name was George Washington Carver. George Washington Carver's birthday was not exactly known. His father died shortly after his birth, and he had an older brother named Jim, Moses, and Susan Carver, who were their owner slaves, adopted the boys after their mother died. George wanted to go to school, but most schools did not accept black children. He was accepted to college in Kansas, but when he got there, he could not attend because he was black. He was finally able to attend college, where he studied music and art for 1 semester. He then studied at a state farm in Alabama. George developed many projects from Peanuts, he was offered to work with Thomas Emerson. He spoke to the Congress about the peanut industry, and he received many awards on his college campus. They made a bronze statue of George, and college opened a museum that was named after him. George Washington Carver was an expert in planting and who made many household projects and recipes using peanuts.
Helen Keller became an author even though she was deaf and blind. She learned how to write and communicate with people. Helen was born in December, Alabama on June 27, 1880. When Helen was 2 years old, she got sick. Helen lost her sight, then her hearing. When Helen was 6, she met Alexander Graham Bell. When Helen had a teacher named Anne Sullivan, but people called her Annie. Annie was not sure if she should teach Helen, but she did. When Helen was a teenager, Annie died of sickness. Helen went to 2 different schools. Helen first went to Perkins, where she made her first book there. She also went to Radcliffe. When Helen got older, she wrote more books. Her second book was called The World I Live In. Her third book was called Teacher. Helen wrote a play called The Miracle Worker. Helen died in June 1st, 1968. As you can see, you can always follow your dreams, but you can't do it alone. Helen was very smart and a hard worker.
Ida B. Wells was a brave woman who fought for what she believed in. Ida fought for colored people's rights. Ida B. Wells was a slave for her whole life. Ida B. Wells lived in Holly Springs, Mississippi. Ida B. Wells got freed because I forgot. Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. Ida B. Wells was looking for a job. She wanted to be a teacher. She found a school and she took the test to be a teacher and passed. After 2 years of teaching, Ida and her 2 younger siblings moved to New York City. With her 2 siblings she had to take care of because her parents died of the yellow fever in 1891. Ida wanted to go somewhere else, but her siblings stayed in North. So Ida moved and fell in love with Ferdinand. Ferdinand worked with Ida and got married with Ida. Ida got three children. One was a boy and two of them were a girl. One of them was Aben, and the boy was Aben, and the girl was Ashley and Benna. They spend a lot of time together. Ida teach them reading and writing stuff. They loved writing and coloring.
Has a good idea ever popped into your head while riding on a train? That is what happened to J.K. Rowling when she thought of a boy with round glasses and with a lightning bolt space scar on his head. Joe was born on July 31, 1965 in England. Joe loved to read books. The river, the forest, and a castle gave her many ideas for stories. Joe had a sister named Diana who was 2 years younger than her. J.K. Rowling was always known as Joe, and she always wanted to be a writer. In her early 20s, she was a scanter in Lingen, but in her heart she was a writer. On a long train ride one time, a boy popped it into her head. He had a round glasses and scar. His name was Harry Potter. She started writing about him. Jo wrote her Harry Potter books in all her space time while working other job. The first publishing copy that she set her story to didn't ever bother reading in all before setting and back. She to her Christopher Little was the second publishing that Jo sent her book to, and he couldn't put down the most variety of Harry Potter came out in 2001. It was a huge hit. The Harry Potter books made Jo
very rich. She uses her money help people. Jo was the most writer, but she didn't have enough money, and Jo didn't get a job yet.
Do you know who Jackie Robinson was? Jackie Robinson was a famous baseball player. In July 23, in 1962, he was awarded in the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum in New York. In 1956, Jackie Robinson died after he was voted in the Hall of Fame at the age of 46. He was the greatest baseball player. Jackie was number 42 in baseball for the Dodgers. He won in the Hall of Fame. He played for the Royals, the Monarchs, and the Giants. He was born on January 31, 1919. His mother was Amelia Robinson. Jackie Robinson has 4 siblings, 3 brothers and 1 sister. He grew up in Pasadena. He played dodgeball at school. He played baseball, basketball, football, and track. Jackie Robinson played semi-pro football in Hawaii. He was drafted in the Army in 1942. He married Rachel in 1946. He had 3 kids. He worked for NACP. Jackie's first major league game was in April 15, 1947. He was the first black man to win MVP. He helped the Dodgers win the World Series. He was also the first black man on TV for baseball. While playing MLB, he won many awards, and in 1997 his number was retired.
Do you know a girl who was the first to study chimpanzees? It is Jane Goodall. She loved wild animals and started clubs to help them. Jane Goodall was born on April 3rd, 1934. Her father gave her a stuffed chimpanzee. She loved animals since her childhood. She started a nature club with her friends. Jane searched a forest in Africa for chimpanzees. The chimpanzees kept running away from Jane, so it made it hard for Jane to study them. The chimpanzees got used to her watching them, but they weren't doing anything interesting. The chimpanzees started to do interesting things like tug-of-war. Jane was the first to study chimpanzees in the wild. She wrote a book called In the Shadow of Man that became a worldwide bestseller. Jane started a club called Roots and Shoots that teaches kids about animals and how to protect them. She also started a club called Take Care that planted more than 1,000 trees for chimpanzees. Thank you for reading about Jane Goodall with me and how all the things we know about chimpanzees came from her.
Do you know the first Catholic president and also the youngest man to ever be elected? If you think it is John F. Kennedy, you are right. John F. Kennedy was born to a wealthy Irish-American family. The Kennedy family was Catholic. He loved all of his siblings but was closest to his older brother Joe and younger sister Kik. His entire family helped him during his campaigns. He married Jacqueline Lee Bouvier. JFK and Jackie had a girl named Caroline and a boy named John Jr. While in the White House, the Kennedys had many pets. A dog named Charlie, a horse named Macaroni, rabbits, guinea pigs, and hamsters. JFK was the second oldest of 9 siblings. He was sick often during his lifetime. He loved history and writing. His favorite book was King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. He spent summers at his summer home in Hyannisport, Massachusetts. His nickname was Jack. He was born on May 29th, 1917. JFK was on the college swim team at Harvard. He was a war hero in the United States Navy. He was in command of boat PT-109. JFK and the crew on PT-109 were hit by Japanese warships. He and the crew swam to shore where he carved a coconut shell to send an SOS to the U.S. He was awarded several medals for saving his crew. In 1946, JFK began his love of politicals. JFK wrote Profiles in Courage. His political career began when he ran for Congress as a Democrat from Boston. He served in the House and Senate. JFK ran for president against Richard Nixon and won. As president, Kennedy supported the arts and space exploration. JFK was committed to the cause of civil rights. JFK was assassinated in Dallas, Texas, while campaigning on November 22, 1963. He was buried in the Arlington National Cemetery. After hearing about JFK, would you like to become a president?
Do you know a man who could talk to birds and loved apples? This man was named John Chapman, but you probably know him as Johnny Appleseed. Johnny Appleseed's real name was John Chapman. He planted orchards of apple trees. He never wore shoes, and he liked to sleep under leaves. He worked very hard to grow apple trees in 3 different states. Johnny went door to door selling apple seeds. At age 35, Johnny Appleseed bought land for the first time. Johnny was born on September 26, 1776. He was most known for being a peacemaker, loving apples, and being a preacher. His dad went to war when he was 1 year old. His mother died when he was 2 years old. Johnny Appleseed had 11 brothers and sisters. Johnny was also a medicine man. He believed in helping others. He never wanted to fight with others, even the Native Americans. He died in 1845, and people started to research his life. Johnny Appleseed also wore interesting clothes. He sometimes wore an upside-down cooking pot on his head. He made his shirts out of empty coffee packs. He was also known to wear an old boot on one foot and a moccasin on the other. I hope you liked reading and learning about Johnny Appleseed.
Do you know who painted the Mona Lisa in The Last Supper? His name was Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci was born on April 15, 1452 in Vinci, Italy. His parents were not married. They didn't want him. His uncle Francesco was the only person that took interest in him. He was fascinated by moving water. Leonardo loved the countryside and drew it. He moved to Florence to work with Verrocchio when he was 12. Leonardo started as an art apprentice, but Verrocchio knew Leonardo was a genius and let him do more. He stayed with Verrocchio for 13 years and became a master. He taught himself many things by reading books. At the age of 30, Leonardo went to Milan to work for Duke Sforza. In 1504, Leonardo's dad died. He left nothing to him. In 1507, his uncle died and gave everything to him. Leonardo died himself in 1519. Leonardo had many famous friends. Some were Duke Sforza, Raphael and Michelangelo, Caesar Borgia, and King Francis I. Leonardo was a true Renaissance man. As an apprentice, he painted the angel in the baptism of Christ. He also painted the Annunciation, Ginevra da Vinci, Younger with Ermine, The Last Supper, and the Mona Lisa. In 1490, he started a big horse statue, but it was destroyed by the French army in 1490. In his notebooks are drawings of helicopters, parachutes, war machines, a robot, and even human dissections. Do you know why Leonardo da Vinci is so famous? He painted the first, second, third, and fourth most famous paintings in the world.
Do you know who Mother Teresa is? Mother Teresa was a nun who taught a lot of lessons about love. Mother Teresa was born Agnes Boyagiu on August 26, 1910. Mother Teresa was born in the city of Skopje, which is now called Macedonia. Mother Teresa was baptized in the Catholic Church the day after she was born. Skopje, Macedonia, and Greece are right next to each other. Mother Teresa lives in the city of Skopje, which is the capital of Macedonia. Mother Teresa lives in Zagreb. Mother Teresa also lives in Boyagiu. Mother Teresa lived in India for a little bit to become a nun. Macedonia is in North Greece. Mother Teresa worked at Mary's School. Mother Teresa joined a group called the Sodality. Mother Teresa was teaching Sunday school to children. Mother Teresa also taught children the alphabet. Mother Teresa bought stuff for the poor. She gave soap to people. Mother Teresa's family helped the poor. They took care of people who were injured. They fed the poor and went to church. Mother Teresa's dad traveled a lot. In summary, Mother Teresa helped lots of people. Clearly, Mother Teresa was a good nun with a big heart. Mother Teresa left a wonderful legacy.
Do you know Neil Armstrong not only was the first man on the moon, but also got his pilot's license before his driver's license? Neil Armstrong was born August 5th, 1930 in Ohio. Neil was always interested in flying. He even flew on his first plane while at age 6. Neil was calm, serious, and determined as a child. Neil always enjoyed making model planes and flying them. Neil was a Boy Scout and even became an Eagle Scout. After 2 years of college at Purdue, Neil joined the Navy. Neil flew jets for Squadron 51 in the Korean War. Neil bombed and scouted places in the war. After the war, Neil went back to Purdue and met his wife. After Purdue, he flew planes at Edwards Air Force Base. Neil flew rocket-propelled test planes. Neil decided to become an astronaut after his 2-year-old child died. Neil joined NASA in the space race to beat USSR to the moon as part of the Cold War. When Neil was training to be an astronaut, he had to go to the jungle to make sure he could survive in case the rocket landed somewhere unexpected like the jungle. Once Neil had to navigate an out-of-control spaceship. The Gemini 8 was supposed to be Neil's first flight to space with NASA but failed. One time, Neil had to get out of a falling test plane. On July 16, 1969,
Neil blasted off into outer space with Buzz Aldrin and Mike Collins on the Apollo 11. Neil was on the moon for 2.5 hours. On the moon, Neil said, "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." When Neil came back from the moon, he was quarantined to make sure he hadn't brought back any germs from the moon. If you ever become an astronaut and set foot on the moon, look around and see if you can spot Neil's footprints on the dusty surface of the moon.
Princess Diana was born on July 1st, 1961. In 1969, the Spencers got a divorce, and Diana's father had custody of the children, and Diana was only 8 years old. Diana and Charles announced their future wedding plans to the world on February 24 in the garden of Buckingham Palace, the 600-room London home of the royal family. The wedding day is on July 29, 1981. Was decided a national holiday in Great Britain. In October 1981, Diana learned that she was going to have a baby. On June 21, 1982, Diana had a baby boy, Prince William Arthur Philip Louis. They spent their time at home caring for their new baby. From the time William was born, Diana wanted to be a better parent than her mother had been. In late 1996, Diana turned her attention to help victims who had been injured from hidden explosive landmines. Although Diana had never thought before, her kind and caring nature made her the perfect teacher. She loved working with children. Diana continued to visit patients in hospitals and raise money for the charities that concerned her most. Diana was voted the most popular woman in the world. On August 30th, 1997, Diana and Dodi visited Paris. Dodi's driver speed up to try to get away from the cameraman. The driver was going too fast and lost control of the car, crashed into the concrete pillar inside a Paris tunnel. Diana was taken to the hospital and she died shortly after. Princess Diana was only 36 years old. Diana's funeral was held on September 6, 1997. Diana was buried on an island in a lake on the Alfil estate. A path leading up to her gravesite is lined with 36 oak trees, one to mark each year of her life. Do you know a girl who was imprisoned in the Tower of London as a teenager but grew up to be a queen? Her name was Good Queen Bess, or you might know her as Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth was born on September 7th, 1533, in Greenwich, England. She had red hair and pale skin like her dad. Queen Anne was beheaded. Elizabeth learned 6 languages. Elizabeth was sent away at age 13. Her dad died. Edward became king. Queen Mary married Prince Philip. Mary became queen and sent Elizabeth to the Tower of London. If Elizabeth didn't obey, she could have been put to death. Queen Mary had 250 plus people burned at the stake. People hated Bloody Mary. They called her Bloody Mary. Queen Mary had no children. Elizabeth was crowned Queen of England on January 15, 1559. Elizabeth never got married. For important matters, she turned to the Privy Council. Every summer, the Queen took a trip visiting towns in England. Elizabeth was a popular queen. Her motto in Latin was always the same. Elizabeth had ruled for 41 years. The Earl of Essex was a favorite of the Queen. Her and the friendship were shattered. Essex plotted a rebellion, but Londoners did not join. The last years were difficult for the country and Elizabeth. In November 1601, Elizabeth made her final speech to the Parliament. After that, Elizabeth grew steadily weaker. On March 24th, Elizabeth died and James became king. Now you know a lot about Queen Elizabeth. Would you like to dress up as her?
Did you know a woman who took a stand by sitting on a bus? Her name was Rosa Parks. Rosa was different because she was colored woman. At that time, colored women were not allowed to sit down while riding on a bus. Rosa Parks was born in Alabama on February 4th in 1913. At the age of 2, her parents separated and she moved to Pine Level with her grandparents. Rosa felt unsafe about the group named the KKK. When Rosa was 11, she moved to Montgomery so she could go to a better school. Her teachers were white women. Rosa wanted to be a teacher when Rosa was 16. She dropped out of school and moved back with her grandmother, who was sick. One day a boy pushed Rosa, but Rosa pushed him back. The boy's mother said, "I could put you in jail." Rosa's grandmother died and her mother became ill. Rosa had to leave school to help. Rosa took a job as a nurse assistant and did sewing on the side. Rosa worked hard to make money. She cleaned houses and sold fruit on the street. Rosa met Raymond when she was 18. Rosa and Raymond got married in December 1932, and they moved to Montgomery. Rosa went back to school and earned her high school diploma in 1934. In 1941, Rosa got a job as a secretary at an army base called Maxwell Field. Rosa had to ride home on a secretary bus. Blacks had to sit in the back rows. They could not sit in the same row with the white people. Rosa got on the bus one day through the front door. The driver ordered Rosa to get off the bus and get back through the back door. The driver stopped the bus and grabbed her by her coat. Rosa reached the front and sat in an empty seat to prove her point. On December 1955, the driver asked Rosa to get off the seat, and she did not listen, so he called the police. Rosa joined the NAACP, served as the secretary 12 years. Rosa organized meetings. She helped lawyers for black people and helped black people register to vote. Rosa met Virginia Durr. They became friends, talked endlessly about ending Armistice. Rosa, with the help of Nixon, filed a lawsuit on December 5th, 1955. Rosa's trial and boycott started. On November 13, 1956, the United States Supreme Court said that bus segregation was unconstitutional. President Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act in 1964. It was a law that black people had to be treated equally and work or or when buying a home. In 1965, Voting Rights Act did away with unfair rules that kept blacks from voting. I hope you have learned a lot about Rosa Parks. She was a black woman who fought for black people.
Do you know a 16-year-old girl who made one of the most remarkable journeys in American history? Well, that would be Sacagawea, and I have lots of information to share with you about her. Sacagawea was born in 1788 in Lemhi County, Idaho. Sacagawea's name means boat puller or bird woman. Sacagawea's dad was a Shoshone chief. At age 12, she was captured by Hista Indians. Then she was sold to a French Canadian. Sacagawea was a Shoshone importer who is a member of the Lewis and Clark expedition. She was the only woman on the expedition. Sacagawea also helped them to buy horses to cross the Bitterroot Mountains. On February 11, 1805, Bird Woman gave birth to her baby. Sacagawea provided a disaster on May 14, 1805. Their boat started to fill up with water and the supplies fell into the water, but Sacagawea saved the supplies. Sacagawea was a great finder. She gathered berries and roots for them to eat. On her trip, they had to eat candles just to live. Sacagawea traveled 5,000 miles with her small son. During the expedition, she had to trade her beaded belt to trade for a fur robe. On July 13, she told Clark to cross the Yellowstone River. She also discovered a gap in the mountains, which is now called Gisby Road Pass. She made history by traveling 4,500 miles along, with her baby. In 1812, she had her second baby. Her name was Lisa. She was 25 years old. She left her baby girl. Clark wanted to adopt Pump. Sacagawea died from a fever. She died in South Dakota on December 20th, 1812. If it weren't for Sacagawea, Lewis and Clark's expedition might have failed.
Do you know about the third president of the United States? Thomas Jefferson was a very interesting man. Thomas Jefferson was born on April 2nd, 1743. He was one of 10 children. Thomas Jefferson's nickname was Tall Tom. He was tall, thin, red-headed, with freckles. Sometimes he read for 15 hours. He graduated at 15. He was a poor speaker but could write well. His political career began in 1769. 5 people prepared the Declaration of Independence. Thomas Jefferson actually wrote it. It was approved by all 12 colonies July 2nd, 1776. The nation's birthday became July 4th. Thomas Jefferson became president in 1801. People thought Thomas Jefferson would wear fancy clothes and go by carriage to his inauguration, but it was the opposite. He dressed regular and walked to his inauguration. Thomas Jefferson retired to Monticello at 66 years old. He wrote 36 6,000 letters in his lifetime. Then, sadly, Thomas Jefferson died on July 4th, 1826. He was pictured on the U.S. nickel in 1938. Then he was placed on Mount Rushmore in 1941. In summary, Thomas Jefferson was a very important person. He was a big part of our nation's history.
200 years ago, a boy named Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart set records at the age of 3. He began to play music everywhere. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was born January 27, 1756, in Salzburg, Austria. There were 6 siblings and 4 of them died. 2 siblings survived. One sister was sick. Mozart had a kidney disease. In 1782, Mozart married Constance. In 1759, he learned to play clavier. At the age of 3, in 1760, he composed his first melody. In 1762, he and his sister played for Empress Maria Teresa. Mozart and Nannerl played in Germany, Belgium, France, and England. In 1765, they composed his first symphony. In 1768, he wrote his first opera. Nan and Mose traveled for music. Their father taught them reading, writing, arithmetic, history, and geography. Their dad was strict, but their mom was not. They had family portraits a lot. The kids were always surrounded by music. An important part of their upbringing. Mozart died December 5th, 1799. Mozart was working on a requiem. Then he died. He died at the age of 35, with friends surrounding him. He thought that his requiem was not finished. It remembered as his best work. He worked from July to December of 1791 on this requiem, which was started for a stranger in a dark hood, but it ended up being more like his own elargraphy. Mozart was 35 when he died. While he was dying, his friends played music around him and sang. He was an inspiration to other musicians.